Walk to your front door and look at the narrow gap underneath it, the sliver of daylight most people never think about. That gap is an open invitation. Every evening, while you sleep, things travel through it. You are not careless for missing it, because almost no home in the West is built to stop what comes in low along the floor. The standard response arrives only after the damage is done. You see an ant, then a second, then a trail of them, and you reach under the sink for a can. Before the method, look at what the people who solved this problem centuries ago refused to do. They never sealed the house. Poison never entered it. Now picture a traditional Japanese home in the thick of summer. The walls are made of paper. Sliding doors open fully onto the garden. Warm, humid air drifts straight through the rooms, and the kitchen sits full of rice and fish and fruit. Every condition that should turn a house into an insect paradise is present at once. And yet the inside stays clean. No flies circle the lamp. Nothing whines past your ear in the dark. The floor carries no marching line of ants. The obvious explanation would be heavy chemicals in every corner, but that explanation collapses the moment you understand the building. Paper windows cannot be soaked in industrial poison. Wood and clay and woven straw cannot be fumigated without ruining the very air the family breathes while they sleep. So the people who lived this way reached for something else entirely. They built a system. Here is what makes that system worth your attention. The way most modern homes fight insects is fundamentally backward, and an entire industry depends on you never noticing. You wait until you see the pest, then you kill the one you can see. Reach for a typical household spray and read the back of the can. The active compounds are pyrethroids, synthetic cousins of a natural chemistry, listed beside a synergist called piperenyl butoxide, printed under warnings to ventilate the room and keep it off your skin. You spray a fine mist of nerve poison across the surfaces of the place where you cook and breathe and raise children, and then you do it again next month because the spray only ever addressed the symptom. Nobody would pour weed killer into a glass and sip it because the label says low toxicity. Yet coating your living space in a repeating fog of insecticide became the normal, sensible, responsible thing to do. The industry did not invent the bug. It invented the dependency. They sell you the cure. The Japanese removed the cause. But the cause is exactly what a Japanese entrance was designed to remove, and it begins with something that was never meant to fight insects at all. Walk through a traditional front door, and you step down, not up, into a lowered area of stone or tile called the genkan. Cooler, heavier air settles and pools there, and the dust and pollen and small crawling things that ride in on the breeze tend to sink and stall at that lower level instead of climbing into the living space. For centuries, it was treated as a spiritual line between the dirty world outside and the clean world within, and nobody planned the physics, yet the physics held. Then the households of the past hung something above it. Bundles of dried mugwort, the bitter herb the Japanese call yomogi, hung beside sprigs of camphor leaf along the doorway. To a person, the smell is faint and medicinal and clean. An ant or a beetle reads it as a wall. The compounds in mugwort and camphor irritate an insect's nervous system, so the crawler turns back at the threshold rather than cross it. That herb hangs harmless from a beam, soft and fragrant, the kind of thing a grandmother ties up by hand. To a bug, the doorway smells like danger. That is the first layer, built for shoes and guarding the floor. But that layer only stops what crawls. It does nothing against the insect every Japanese summer is famous for, the one that does not touch the ground at all. That insect flies in through the open paper door at dusk and goes straight for your skin. Here is the answer that has been curling smoke into Japanese bedrooms for over 100 years. It is a thin green spiral called Katori Senko, the mosquito-catching incense. And the chemistry inside it is the same chemistry those modern spray cans are imitating. The active ingredient is pyrethrum, a fine powder ground from the dried flower heads of a particular chrysanthemum, a small daisy with white petals and a yellow center. Persian traders learned thousands of years ago that the dried flower could kill lice and fleas, and Chinese records noted the same effect. The compounds packed into that yellow center, the pyrethrins, attack an insect's nervous system within seconds and trigger paralysis, while a body your size breaks them down quickly and harmlessly. A Japanese man named Eiichiro Ueyama took that ancient flower and gave it the shape that made it famous in the 1890s. His early version was a straight stick of incense that burned out in under an hour, too short to guard a full night of sleep. It was his wife, Yuki, who suggested coiling the incense into a tight spiral. And with that single idea, a coil could smolder slowly from dusk until morning, releasing a thin, steady haze of pyrethrum that drops mosquitoes out of the air while the family sleeps beneath it. One coil costs a few cents. It is an ancient flower reshaped by a man's wife, now guarding the dark for the price of a coin. Let us bring both of those ideas to your own door tonight, because every layer of this system scales down to almost nothing. Start with the gap you looked at earlier. Measure the space between the bottom of your door and the floor, and fit a simple brush strip seal across it, the kind sold for a few dollars in any hardware aisle. That strip does the work the genkan does, stopping the low crawlers before they slip inside. Then place a single pyrethrum coil on a heat-proof dish in the room where you sleep. Set well away from curtains and bedding, and light it at dusk. Watch the smoke. A correctly burning coil gives a thin, steady ribbon that drifts upward. If the smoke billows thick and the coil burns fast, it has caught a draft and needs to sit somewhere stiller. When it sputters and keeps dying, the coil has absorbed moisture and needs a dry replacement. But even a sealed door and a burning coil leave one question unanswered. Neither of them explains why the bugs wanted your house in the first place. And the thing that draws almost every household pest is not light and not food, it is water. This is where the Japanese house does something stranger than any product on a shelf. The builders made the entire structure hostile to moisture without adding a single device. Consider the materials in a traditional room. The floor is tatami, thick mats woven from dried rice straw and soft rush grass. Its interior walls are shoji, wooden lattice covered in washi paper. The frame is timber set in clay. Every one of those materials behaves like a sponge in reverse, pulling humidity out of the muggy summer air and releasing it slowly when the air turns dry, holding the room in a steady balance that never tips into damp. A house that never stays damp offers no standing moisture, no clammy corner, nothing for an insect to drink. Cockroaches, silverfish, and mold mites all depend on humidity to survive, so a building that quietly drinks the dampness from the air has already starved them. Your version costs almost nothing. Keep your rooms aired and dry. Run a small dehumidifier in the damp corners, the bathroom, the basement, the cupboard under the sink where the air goes stale. Fix the slow drip you have been ignoring. Strip the water, and you strip the reason most pests ever chose your walls. The architecture was the pesticide, and the final layer is the one you cannot see, only smell. Walk into a freshly built Japanese room, and a clean, sharp, lemony scent rises from the wood. That is hinoki, the Japanese cypress prized for centuries as the finest building timber in the country. Hinoki releases aromatic oils called terpenes, the same family of compounds found in citrus peel, and a number of those scents are precisely the ones insects evolved to avoid, because in nature they signal a plant that is toxic or inedible. So a room finished in hinoki with a bowl of citrus nearby smells inviting to you and repellent to a moth. You can borrow the effect with a few drops of hinoki or citrus oil near your entrance. Then the Japanese pair that scent with a discipline that borders on ritual. The floors are wiped daily. Shoes stay at the genkan, so nothing from the street is tracked across the home. Food is sealed and cleared the moment a meal ends, never left to sit. Drains and gutters are kept scrupulously clear so no water ever pools against the house. To an insect, the place offers nothing. Now set that beside the can under your sink, and the failure becomes obvious. The spray kills the single insect in front of you and ignores every condition that summoned it. You missed the kitchen, the one ant dies, and the damp behind the cabinet, and the crumbs under the toaster, and the gap beneath the door remain exactly as inviting as before. Within days, the trail returns, so you spray again, and the pyrethroids and the piperonyl butoxide settle onto the counter where you slice bread and the floor where a toddler crawls. Worse, populations of roaches and other pests have grown measurably resistant to these repeated chemical hits over the years, so the spray that worked last summer works a little less this one. You are not solving the problem. Instead, you are renting a delay, and the rent keeps rising. Here is what the two approaches actually cost you. A pyrethrum coil runs $1 to $2 and burns for a full night. One brush strip for the door is a few dollars, paid once. A bottle of citrus oil lasts months, and the habits of drying, sealing, and wiping cost nothing at all. Set that against the recurring spend on the other side. There are aerosol cans bought again and again through the warm months, and an exterminator visit that commonly runs well over $100 once the problem outgrows the can. The Japanese system protects a centuries-old home for the price of a few coins and a few minutes a day. That chemical routine bills you forever and never closes the door. But there is one thing this entire system cannot stop, and it is the part that unsettles people most. Stack all 4 layers: the trapping entrance, the smoke, the moisture-starved structure, the wall of scent, and something still gets through. It does not come through the door, because it is already inside the walls. The Japanese house centipede lives in the damp gaps behind the structure and hunts at night, slipping out through cracks no wider than a thread. Worse than that are the subterranean termites, which tunnel up from the soil directly into the timber frame and eat the house from the inside out, never once crossing the threshold the 4 layers so carefully guard. They were never outside to be stopped. This is the detail that exposes the whole premise of a single miracle trick. No one layer of the Japanese system ever stopped everything, and the people who built it never pretended otherwise. The genkan misses the mosquito. A burning coil misses the reason it came. Dry walls miss the scent. Scent alone misses the creature already nesting in the timber. Each layer fails alone. Stacked together, they fail almost never. And almost every piece of it has been sitting in plain sight for hundreds of years, never written down in one place. Because nobody thought to connect the sunken floor, the smoke, the paper, and the cypress into one answer. Now go back to that gap under your front door, the one that looked like an oversight a few minutes ago. It no longer reads as bad luck or a dirty home. Instead, it reads as a single missing piece in a system you can finish tonight for the price of a sandwich. The Japanese never had one trick. They had a habit of removing reasons. The goal was never to kill what you see. It is to offer nothing worth coming for. If this changed how you see your own front door, subscribe, because that same Japanese house hides something stranger still. A way of joining wood so that a single timber frame can sway through the earthquakes that flatten concrete and steel around it, held together with no nails, no glue, no bolts, and standing for over 1,000 years. That is the next video.